He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another obscure village, where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never went to college. He never visited a big city. He never traveled more than 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things we usually associate with greatness. He had no credentials to his name. He was only 33. His friends ran away from him. One of them denied him. He was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to the cross between two thieves. While they were dying, his executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property he had on earth. When he died, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 19 centuries have come and gone, and today Jesus is the central figure of the human race and the leader of mankind's progress. All the armies that have ever marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, all the parliaments that have ever sat, and all the kings that have ever reigned put together have not affected the life of mankind on this earth as much as this one solitary life. That's a poem written by Dr. James Allen. You notice how it doesn't even mention the name of Jesus until the very end there, and yet I guarantee you, within the first couple sentences, you knew exactly who I was talking about. No person to ever walk this earth has ever affected the world more than the man we call Jesus of Nazareth, or Jesus Christ. In fact, he's impacted the life of man on this earth more than people who have lived 100 years. There are men who have lived to 110 and didn't even make close to the amount of impact this man made in 33 and a half years. And he was only in public ministry for 3 years. That's what this book written by Detective J. Warner Wallace is about when he says, "Person of interest, why Jesus still matters in a world that rejects the Bible." I guarantee you watching this video, whether you're a Christian, an atheist, a Muslim, a Jew, whoever you are, you have heard your fair share about Jesus. This man impacted everything. Notice how religions that came after Christianity still had to deal with Jesus, and religions that came before Christianity still have to deal with Jesus. The Jewish faith has their say about Jesus. The Muslim faith has their say about Jesus. Nobody can get around him. They have to deal with Jesus. And there's no person who has had more paintings, more movies, more songs, anything like that written about him. He has been recreated in art so much to the point where Detective Wallace says that if you were to take paintings just from the first couple centuries after the life of Christ, you could reconstruct the entire gospel account just from paintings from the first couple centuries. In fact, the movie about Christ, the most famous movie about Christ, I should say, by Mel Gibson, the Passion of the Christ, got $612.1 million at the box office. A movie about Christ, and there's so many others. No person has had more movies made about them than Jesus Christ. What about this? The fact that the very empire that put Christ on that cross, the Roman Empire, in just a mere 300 years was worshiping him as God. 300 years. That's only a couple generations. The same empire that killed him is now worshiping him. And in that empire, in this small area where Jesus was crucified, suddenly Christianity spread to the entire world. Let me ask you this. If Jesus didn't really die on that cross, and if he didn't really rise from the dead, how did it spread so fast? Imagine you're in a small city, and one of your neighbors is publicly executed, and then a bunch of your other neighbors say, "Hey, I saw him alive afterwards." And then this begins to spread, and soon it's went to the entire country and then the world. Does that sound like something that could be faked? You'd have to convince a lot of people to be in on it, and all of your neighbors would have to be lying to you. And we have attestation in the New Testament that 500 separate people saw Christ afterwards. Nobody made more of an impact than Jesus. And we know this based on the fact that he's still with us today. Regardless of what you think about whether he was indeed who he claimed to be or not, it is undeniable that Jesus Christ is the most influential figure in the human race. So I challenge you today, think about the things he said, and we'll get into that next time, and ask yourself, if somebody had this much of an impact and said the things Jesus said, was he telling the truth? God bless.